Sonic,
pleasure.
I'm making you the presenter. Really looking forward to meeting you and having a conversation about our favorite hobby, trading, or our favorite vocation, trading. Sonic, waiting to hear you. Mr. Crypto.
Hello.
Hi, how are you, buddy?
Hey, Dale. How's it going?
Good. So nice to meet you. And we've had some life in crypto over the last couple months. Very nice recoveries. But I want to start off with this. Okay, your handle. I know the Satoshi part. Sonic. Does that mean that you trade above the speed of sound, and that makes you Sonic? Huh?
Pretty much. Yeah. That's how I got the nickname.
Okay. So Sonic, why don't you take us back to before you became a trader? What were you doing, and what led you into it? I'm assuming you're probably an early adopter of Bitcoin. Am I guessing correctly?
Yes.
Okay. So why don't you tell us the story, how it happened for you?
Sure. So I started getting into markets like generally from a friend of mine in college. He was kind of like looking at stock market and things like that, and I would kind of follow along and buy things like randomly and have no real clue about what I was doing. But before I actually started trading, I was a stuntman in the movie industry, so that was what I was doing.
Wow.
I did a lot of films all over the States and a lot of different things like that. So I was a stunt double.
What was your most dangerous stunt where you wish you would have had a stop loss and a little tighter? Buddy?
I think it was probably flipping a car.
Okay.
So I had to like ride a car up a rail, and then it made the car jump and flip like a barrel roll. That was pretty intense.
Wow. Did you do a lot of your stunts in automobiles, or were they all different kinds?
Actually, that was probably why it was scary for me, because most of my background, I have like 14 years of parkour and free running background. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but like I was a kid and I would be, climbing up gutters in the alleyway, like jumping from building. And, like,
there are movies like that where they show people that do that. And
that's how I got into the movie business. Was like got recognized for that skill, and it just sort of like led to all sorts of things. And it was just like, this crazy turn of events where at first I was just this crazy kid. Everyone was like, dude, you're gonna kill yourself. And then all of a sudden, like these producers were like, hey, you look like this actor, can you like join our production and like help us with this scene? And it just kind of evolved, and it was like this crazy sort of career path out of nothing.
That the best things do that way. And what I gather from it is definitely to do what you did before it became a profession. You're not risk averse, because you're risking yourself physically. Money is nothing compared to risking your body for work.
Exactly.
So while you were doing this stunt work, were you progressing as a trader, or did you let go of it for a while?
Actually, yeah. Whenever I was like getting into more and more jobs as a stuntman, I started to think to myself, like, I think that there's a smarter way to like, reinvest like some of the money that I'm making, and like kind of get involved in investing. And one of the things I bought my first Bitcoin in like June 2015, and I was aware of like how bad it had crashed and all of that, but I had no idea what I was doing. I just literally bought it at the right time. Like it just happened to be the bottom, and it was like, I was kind of doing a lot of soul searching all through the years of my my path has been very different than most people. Like, so I always had like an interesting perspective, and it led me to question a lot of things about like life and so once I learned about crypto and like what its message was, and like what it was trying to accomplish as far as like making sort of like this decentralized network that could, sort of solve a lot of the problems. And whenever I learned about how, we're just like printing money, it was like, man, that doesn't make any sense. Like, there's got to be some kind of a solution. So I just went all in to Bitcoin and had no idea what I was doing. And once it started to seem like, oh wow, it's doing really well, it was like November 2016 or so. I just decided like I would put a lot more energy into learning and like trying to be a day trader.
Okay.
So that was basically my start.
Okay. So tell us about how you learned how to chart, and if you had any mentors yourself, or were you completely self-taught? Your charts are very clean. I don't see any indicators on it, and we're looking at what here, a weekly chart. So
Yeah.
who taught you the value of technical analysis and to use candlesticks, and tell us about that process?
It's a long story, but it happened in a short time because I would wake up early and spend like literally all day just like trying to figure stuff out. So in the start, like around late 2016, I was learning a lot about market cycles and like like the emotional market cycle. And in crypto, you'll see these cycles a lot, and they'll play out a bunch in like the lower cap altcoins and things like that.
Yeah.
And so I was making a lot of like very speculative like trades on these coins that had like no liquidity, and there was no, the only thing I saw was a huge spike and then a huge depression, and I would buy that real low depression on these coins. And
did it work out for you?
And then it just started to work out. But then obviously the market cycle plays out, and they drop so fast. So I really consumed in the beginning. I was just like going on YouTube and just consuming content. I learned a lot. In my first like probably few months from a guy named Crypto Picasso on YouTube. He does a lot of stuff about market cycles, and he specialized in cryptocurrencies and stuff like that. And then I learned from a guy named Josh. He studied Josh Oglowitz or something. I forget how to say his last name, but he's on YouTube, and he did a lot of trend analysis. So I was basically like coming into crypto with the idea of like, this must be close to the bottom, and like a new trend is going to start. And that was kind of like my mentality, was like, if I just dedicate my time now and energy to getting good as a trader, just like how I had with my sport. So like I had spent all this time just like sort of focusing so specifically on this thing that I became skilled at. And I was like, if I can apply that same type of idea to this thing called trading, then I should be able to like get really precise. And that's what my goal was the whole time. So once the whole 2017 bubble happened, that was whenever I started to like, obviously like just kind of get out of the market with most of what I had made. And then like the rest of what I left in just started depreciating really quickly. So I stopped trading for a little bit, and I just started studying price action. And a lot of what I learned was from Forex people. So on YouTube, I was learning from, well, I watched like a lot of Trader Dante stuff, and I learned a ton from Michael Huddleston.
I saw those lines there. I thought so. So I've interviewed Michael a few times, and also you're not the first person that said they've learned from him. He spawned a lot of great traders. So did you spend a lot of time? Were you a member of the Inner Circle Traders, or what?
Yeah, I was on the forums for a little while, and I spent most of my time like just sort of rewatching all of the videos on YouTube, and spending like just time taking notes, writing things down, and kind of playing with the charts. Because once I really started to apply the kind of concepts, that was whenever I started to kind of have like a clicking idea and started to look at the market from both sides. Because in the beginning, I was really just a buyer. There was no reason, to get
short.
involved. Right, exactly.
Okay. So, do you journal? Because you write some
I
things down. Do you journal your trades?
yes, I started not too long ago. It was probably like six or 7 months ago. I started to journal like what I was doing and like why I was getting into the trade. I would put the chart set up, like all of that kind of stuff, and that has helped a lot. I think that
Okay, I was going to ask you that question. You know why? Because you're writing it down and it's NLP and it makes a bigger impression on your
exactly.
brain than if you just look at something visually.
I think
So,
so. Yeah,
yeah, so okay, that's a great testimonial for everyone should be journaling their trades. You know, you can't be lazy and do this, can
no,
you, Sonic?
no, you can't, not at all. I think that that's really just the thing. It's like every person I've ever met who's successful in anything was like passionate first of all, and like they had this kind of like drive. Like they were never like, okay, time to take a break. It was always like, no, I want more. Like they're constantly hungry for, trying to make themselves better.
Okay,
Trading, I love the appeal. Like I really clicked with trading because of like my background, and like this whole idea of self-improvement and like getting good was kind of like in my mindset to begin with. And then once I found trading, it was like, wow, it's like, you can kind of do that and play the market, and you could make a living from this. Like this could be a whole income.
right.
um yeah, so that's kind of my background. And then once I found a lot of the crypto Twitter stuff, I started following a lot of guys on there, and just kind of learning. Like I'm always a perpetual student. Like that's kind of just how I see things, and there's never really kind of like a pinnacle. There's always a perpetual learning curve. So
Okay,
um,
so how many years would you say it took you to make breakthroughs to say where you are now, to believe that you can make a living doing this? How many years? Because, you know, you could be
so,
the hungriest person for knowledge in the world,
oh, for
but
sure,
experience still is about time passing, isn't it?
it is. Yeah. Well, I guess it would probably I would say I probably hit like my breakthrough moment like mid 20, like late 2018, where I started being like, okay, like I'm really consistent now. And so I guess probably like 2.5 years almost uh, of doing this. I mean, I really haven't been doing this for very long, first of all. So, um, I
Okay.
guess probably about a year, maybe a little less than a year ago, I started to be way more consistent.
Okay. So why don't you tell us what you're seeing here with structure? And you know what I liked was back in February, January, we pulled back but did not take out the low from late last year in Bitcoin, and it was like a 78.6 fib retracement before we started heading up again. That would be, yeah, it was probably February. You had your first white candle, then we moved sideways and put in its first higher low, all the way down at the bottom in 2019.
Oh
Okay,
yeah,
so okay, there's a low, and then you see the pullback that we're getting there. That was 78.6 back. It's one of my favorite fib levels,
yeah,
and then we went. Yeah.
yeah, that
So
was the
yeah, I went with GBTC because you know, I just let me ask you this: where do you trade crypto?
So right now I do mostly everything on Deribit. It's basically got futures that has perpetual swap contracts for Ethereum and Bitcoin, and they
Hmm.
also do options, so you can buy calls and puts and everything on Bitcoin and Ethereum. So
Wow, I didn't
it,
even know they were. Are they liquid?
they're getting there. I mean, it's not like it's definitely new. So, but they're definitely the first crypto exchange to have options um, for Bitcoin. So,
And like the rest of them, Sonic, they're unregulated, right?
I think so. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
So
I think
do
they're
you?
out of the Netherlands or anything like that.
Okay. Do you keep? Do you feel comfortable keeping large sums of cash in there, or do you kind of keep the
I
account
don't.
drained?
I keep a like a medium size. I don't really want to put too much on there. Um, but yeah, it's always been really good. They're really good with support.
Okay,
I've never
interesting.
had an issue with a withdrawal or deposit. There's never been a problem.
And
But
you're
that's
in the
pretty.
U.S., right?
I'm not anymore, but
Okay,
I was. And
okay,
in 2017, in the beginning, I was there, and then I moved to kind of like open the horizons as a trader because I kind of saw the limitations for staying. Um, but
okay.
yeah,
Where are you?
I'm in the Caribbean. I'm in the Bahamas.
Okay, all right,
So yeah,
nice. All right.
um,
So, okay, so the advantages, like Caymans and Puerto Rico, there
yeah,
are some advantages, and also in crypto, unlike in the U.S., we just have so few brokers to choose from here in the U.S.
yeah. Especially for like derivatives and stuff like that. I mean,
Yeah.
fortunately for me, I didn't really get into derivatives like heavily until, I was already like I had already moved out. But
Hmm.
that was one of the things that I saw as I was kind of like, well, do I want to take trading seriously? And I did, like, from the start. And that was one of my decisions from the start, was to kind of leave and maybe move to the Caribbean, do like a citizenship by investment program or something like that.
Okay.
So,
So tell us what you're seeing in Bitcoin and say, for example, you're flat now. What would you be doing in Bitcoin?
well, we're at resistance currently. This is kind of the one level I had marked off coming up to this point.
Hmm.
And so it's really sort of one of those things where I want to see confirmation.
What would give
And
that to you?
well, right now, if we look at like the lower time frames, I think I want to see the weekly close first of all.
Yeah.
Um, but if we look at the lower time frames, the way this is acting here, it's really just kind of flirting with this level.
Right.
And so right now, I think that maybe
Are you
to like take
tempted to
off,
short it here?
I am a little bit, but it's also like this momentum is just intense.
It is.
And I've been watching Bitcoin, for a while, and that when this thing tries to go, it goes. So it's like you
Right.
don't really want to step in front of it unless you've got like a really, really managed tight stop and everything else. So
Okay. All right. So it's an I don't know right here.
it is kind of for me,
Let me
like,
ask you this, okay? Because you're on the on Twitter and you're talking to people, and I
yeah,
remember early in my career, is it hard for you to say to people I don't know?
not really.
Okay, cool, because that's wisdom. Normally a lot of people feel very uncomfortable saying I don't know, and they pretend to know.
Well,
And
I think that also
go ahead.
probably comes with like if you have like kind of a responsibility to like let's say you're housing a room of people who are all paying you money for your opinion. I
Hmm.
think that then you would probably be under pressure all the time to be like, oh well, this is what's going to happen, and I don't have that. So like, it's for me, I'm just being honest with myself whenever I say I don't know, because
Okay.
like I was long this whole time from like around like 3,400, like you said, off of that fib level, and I
Yeah.
was long taking profits at these highs, and then took profits once we cleared over this black area, and
Hmm.
then I was completely out of the position, and then went long like a few times in here. So I've just been taking profits and waiting to see, what we're gonna do here, because now
Okay.
I'm not sure if we're gonna actually just pummel through here and head for maybe
Were
these
you
highs.
okay? That was a great trade. Let me ask you this, because you've been in crypto. You have more experience in crypto than me. Were you surprised by the outperformance of Litecoin and Ethereum over Bitcoin during that advance?
Um, I was surprised by Litecoin. I think that
Okay.
was pretty unexpected. But with Ethereum, it's pretty mirroring to Bitcoin. It's almost like a leveraged Bitcoin,
Okay.
because
Interesting.
it's like a cheaper, but the market structure on Ethereum and Bitcoin are so similar. So if we look at Ethereum,
Yeah.
Now we've been having way more, the higher lows are a little bit more obvious on here, but
Right.
the structure right down at this point, if you look, that was the like higher low that brought us all the way
Uh-huh.
up to these. It
Right.
looks so similar to the way that Bitcoin did. So
Right.
to me, it's
Yeah.
like a leveraged Bitcoin.
Yeah. So you
Just
had like doubles in both, and you had triples in Litecoin.
right,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Litecoin
Okay.
trade was definitely something that surprised me a lot.
Yeah. I kind of
But
noticed the pattern was showing more relative strength during that sideways time frame. Uh, do you trade altcoins? And there's so many of them, Sonic. How do you know? How do you filter them out? How do you know what to even? I'm looking at your screen here, so I'm thinking a lot of these are altcoins. How do you
yeah,
know what's just hype? Just part of a fad. And I kind of compare these to like bulletin board stocks or pink sheet stocks where
yeah,
there may not be much of a fundamental story right away, but what they do is they have IR guys, investor relations guys, that pay people to actually bring volume into their
yeah.
shares. Does that happen with altcoins? And how do you know which ones are for real?
Well, I think to a certain extent it happens with altcoins, but obviously the market is a lot smaller than you know the traditional markets. But um, I do trade altcoins, but really have scaled back all of my exposure to altcoins over this like past year or so. I've been really just focusing on Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, Bitcoin Cash, like all of the ones that are having the most trading action
Hmm.
and the ones that I can trade both sides on. So
Okay.
I like to be able to hedge a position if I get in on a long or something like that,
Right.
and that I think that that's just it's helped me to really manage risk in any scenario.
Okay.
So for altcoins, that was kind of like how I started, and I was going into these really speculative ones, the ones that like you said, it's like they're very they seem sketchy,
Okay.
um,
Let me
and
ask you this. Everyone, trading's easy when everything is going well. I think the rubber meets the road when you're in a drawdown.
oh yeah,
Okay, because a lot of trading's in your head, and when you're in a drawdown, there are a lot of things going on psychologically with you. First of
absolutely.
all, what was your biggest drawdown, and what kind of self-talk did you give yourself to continue on after it?
Well, I think that my biggest drawdown was after the bubble popped,
Okay,
and I was still trying to apply my old methods to a market that had changed. So I was trying to, like buy and play the bounces, and then the bounces weren't going as high and just dropping straight through the floor. So I think that after I left my trading balance, I lost like pretty much the majority of it, like 90% drawdown on what I had left in my account.
okay.
And
At least you were
so,
smart enough to pull equity, so it wasn't a disaster.
right.
Oh, and I remember what you told me. You said after that, you stopped trading for a while.
Yep, I stopped trading and I just kind of decided to go into, hermit mode, studying
Okay.
my ass off so that whenever I go and I put my money back in, I can like, you know, put in a small amount and then build it up and get confidence and then start to, build size.
Okay.
Um, so that was something that was really important. I think whenever I lost everything, that I had left in my trading account, um, it was kind of like
Went
an eye opener. Oh
you
shit.
reassessed and you went back to the drawing board, and that's actually a very good solution because trading after an emotional experience like that is not
Yeah,
easy. Because then you're trading out of weakness and fear instead of, okay, Mr. Market, I've done my work. Prove me wrong.
exactly.
Instead you're saying, I hope this one works, right?
Right.
And I could only say it because I've heard it in my own head. So taking a break is a great idea if you're going through a difficult time frame and going back to the drawing board. That was a great answer. In fact, you know what? you've had a lot of pearls here, Mr. Stuntman. I think your biggest stunt that you ever did in your life was making the transition from, putting your body at risk to putting your wallet at risk and making it work for you. I want to congratulate you on that.
Yeah, that was definitely a great decision. I've had a lot of fun learning about trading and getting, so many different qualities to this business remind me of like what I was always attracted to in the first place, which was kind of risk and like managing risk and managing emotions within the risk. So like that had always been a part of like the way I see things. Like whenever I was, kid and being like, oh my gosh, that would be so cool to film me jumping from this building to this building. But the process behind doing that is a lot more emotional and a lot more about calculation than people from the outside are just thinking I'm some idiot like doing this jump and
you're planning it.
Yeah, it was all planned.
That takes a plan too. Do you have any kind of business model? Are you teaching people? What are you doing now on social media? You put out ideas, share ideas, or are you just mainly trading your own account?
I just trade my own account and I really just try to share my ideas on Twitter. I don't really have like a business with trading yet, but maybe one day. I think that really at this point, I'm just kind of really trying to gain experience and get better as a trader. I'm always trying to be more precise with what I'm looking at on the charts and my entries and exits. And it's one thing to chart it and like to have my levels work out, and then it's another thing to trade it like really well. So
it sure is. So there's a difference between analysis and trading, isn't there?
Yes, exactly. So getting that down is constantly, it's like a sharpening of the blade kind of thing I think of. So at this point, all I'm doing is just trading and sharing my ideas on Twitter. I have a good time, like kind of reading other people's ideas and thinking about like, what other people are seeing, because we're all kind of looking at the same charts, right? Like Bitcoin is really my driving attention, because I think that really we're being led by Bitcoin in the rest of the market. So if I'm kind of on par with what Bitcoin's doing, then I can predict to a certain extent like how the rest of the market will start to play.
All right, well then let me ask you the big question. Bear market rally or the beginning of a new cycle that's going to take us above last year's highs?
Okay, so for that question, I want to talk about like the macro picture. So let's see, I'll put this on here. I love this chart, and I'm sure you've probably seen something like this before, but it's like Bitcoin's whole entire lifespan.
Right.
I'll put it on weekly so that we can see the structure a little bit better.
Yeah.
So I do think that this is why I'm kind of unsure at the point that we're at right now at this weekly resistance.
Yeah.
Because the last time that we went into, I marked off these time zones where there was like the bottom before the next halvening. So the fundamental analysis of Bitcoin is every 4 years there's a halvening on the mining rewards. So Bitcoin is, and so every 4 years the reward or the supply gets sort of cut, and that's what drives demand. So if you look,
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, if you look historically at Bitcoin's whole entire cycle, the best time to be buying Bitcoin was the year before the halving. So November 2012, we had the halving, and it went from $9 to $1,200.
Yeah.
And then we had the next halving was in July 2016, and we went from $500 to $20,000. So here it's like, I'm just looking at the trend on the macro picture, and here we're getting to that point where we're getting close to how every single cycle beforehand had bottomed before the next halving. So if we look at this in comparison, it looks very similar to here. So if we are at that resistance point, like I was showing on the weekly earlier, and it does get rejected, it could play out very similarly to the last time it bottomed. Now, it doesn't have to play out like that at all. we might bust out and then just move sideways along that $6,000 support level, and then sort of
till the halving. And the next
right.
halving is due when, in 2020?
Yes, it's in the 25th of May 2020. So like right now, like the way I look at Bitcoin is to just try to get as much as I can before then. So like playing all the markets, I think that this year has been sort of an interesting time, because when we were in this bottom area, I was looking at all markets as an opportunity to gain more Bitcoin. So I was trading like the S&P to earn Bitcoin. Like I shorted the top of that pretty good, but then it bounced so hard, so I got out like with good profits. But trading too big.
All right. Well, I've interviewed a lot of crypto guys. You're the first one that brought up this concept of halving. So what a pearl. And I'm really glad that I reached out to you, Sonic. And like it or not, you're now my new trading warrior brother.
I like it. Thank you very much.
All right. And please, let's keep in touch.
Absolutely.
I plan on moving to the Caribbean next year myself. So, maybe we could have some type of tropical drink and talk markets someday. And before that, I'd love to have you back on. And I really appreciate it. I learned from you today. That's always our goal here in F.A.C.E, is to build up and edify traders. And, you may focus on crypto, but you have skills. And what an interesting story. You're the first stuntman I've ever talked to before or interviewed. And again, I think your greatest stunt was the transition from being a stuntman to being a trader. And really, it's not an easy thing to do, and you need to be mentally tough, and you are, bro. Okay?
Awesome. I had a great time.
All right. So everyone, the best way to follow Sonic is at Satoshi Sonic, Michael.
Yep.
Michael Beatty's asking, at Satoshi Sonic. So at the speed of sound. Just think about it.
Exactly.
All right, buddy. Well, good hunting, and thank you so much for being here with us on Turnaround Tuesday. And I'll be in touch soon. The video is going to be great. It should be out in a few hours. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks,
all right, you're very welcome, Sonic. So that's it, everyone. That's Turnaround Tuesday. Remember, don't just count your pips, count your blessings. You're welcome, Alina. And we'll see everyone Wednesday. Good hunting. Adios. Thank you, Sonic. I just heard a boom.